When you think of the ocean, your mind probably goes to images of vast blue waters, coral reefs, or maybe even mysterious sea creatures. But what if I told you that deep below the surface, there's something so valuable, so unbelievably precious, that its worth is estimated in the billions? And no, it's not treasure chests filled with gold or pirate loot. It's something far more unexpected.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Let's start by imagining that you're out in the middle of the ocean, staring at the horizon. Beneath you, under miles of water, lies a hidden world that we still know so little about. We've explored more of the moon's surface than we have of our own oceans. And it's down in these unexplored depths where this incredible thing exists. Now, you're probably wondering, what could possibly be worth billions under the ocean? The answer might surprise you. It's not just one thing, it's a network of living organisms that form the foundation of the ocean's ecosystems. I'm talking about coral reefs. But wait, coral? How could something as simple as coral be worth billions? At first glance, coral reefs might not seem like much. They're these colorful underwater structures that stretch across parts of the ocean floor, teeming with fish, anemones, and other marine life. But coral reefs are more than just pretty to look at. They are the backbone of marine biodiversity. They support around 25% of all marine species, despite covering less than 1% of the ocean floor. That's like having a city block in the middle of a vast desert that houses nearly every species of plant and animal. The concentration of life there is staggering. But the real value of coral reefs isn't just in the biodiversity they support, it's in what they do for the planet. Coral reefs protect coastlines from storm surges and erosion, acting as natural barriers that absorb wave energy. Without them, entire coastal communities would be at risk of devastating floods, which could cost billions in damage every year. In fact, it's estimated that coral reefs provide more than $9 trillion in ecosystem services globally. That's trillion with a T now. Think about that for a second. Something that's hidden beneath the ocean, mostly out of sight, is protecting millions of lives and saving countries billions of dollars in disaster prevention. And yet coral reefs are in danger. Over the past few decades, they've been dying off at alarming rates due to climate change, ocean acidification, pollution, and overfishing. Every time we lose a reef, we're not just losing a beautiful underwater landscape, we're losing a critical defense system for the planet. So, the real question is, why are we allowing something worth billions, maybe even trillions, to disappear? Imagine you owned a vault filled with gold, and slowly, every day, a small piece of that gold was being taken away. Would you sit back and let it happen, or would you fight to protect it? That's the situation we're in right now with coral reefs. But let's take it even deeper. The value of coral reefs isn't just economic or environmental, it's also cultural and social. For many coastal communities, especially in places like the Pacific Islands and the Caribbean, coral reefs are the heart of their way of life. They provide food, jobs, and tourism opportunities. Without coral reefs, these communities would be devastated, not just financially but emotionally as well. So when we talk about the value of coral reefs, we're not just talking dollars and cents, we're talking about the very fabric of life for millions of people. This brings me to a profound question: how do we measure value? Is it just about money, or is it about the things that sustain life and bring meaning to our existence? If coral reefs disappear, we lose more than just an ecosystem, we lose a part of who we are, a connection to the natural world that we might never get back. Now, you might be thinking, okay, coral reefs are valuable, but billions? That seems like a stretch. But when you add up the services they provide, storm protection, fishery support, tourism, and biodiversity, it's clear that coral reefs are one of the most valuable natural resources on the planet. And yet, they're disappearing at an unprecedented rate. So why is this happening? It all comes down to human activity. The burning of fossil fuels is causing the Earth's temperature to rise, and the oceans are absorbing much of that heat. This leads to coral bleaching, where the symbiotic algae that give coral its color die off, leaving the coral white and lifeless. Without these algae, the coral can't survive. And once the coral is gone, so is the entire ecosystem that depends on it. It's not just climate change, though. Overfishing, particularly the use of destructive methods like blast fishing, is destroying reefs. Pollution, especially plastic waste and agricultural runoff, is suffocating coral ecosystems. And the increasing acidification of the ocean, caused by higher levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, is making it harder for corals to build their calcium carbonate skeletons. Here's something to think about. If we know all of this, if we understand just how valuable coral reefs are, why aren't we doing more to save them? Is it because they're out of sight and out of mind? Or is it because we've become so focused on short-term profits that we're willing to sacrifice long-term survival? This is where things get really complex. To save coral reefs, we need to make systemic changes. It's not just about reducing carbon emissions, though that's a huge part of it. It's also about changing the way we manage our oceans. We need to create marine protected areas where reefs can recover without the threat of human interference. We need to invest in coral restoration projects, where scientists are working to grow new corals in labs and transplant them into damaged reefs. And we need to hold corporations and governments accountable for their role in the destruction of these ecosystems. But here's the challenge: these efforts require global cooperation and political will. And right now, that's in short supply. It's easy to feel overwhelmed when we think about the scale of the problem. How can one person, one community, make a difference when the stakes are so high and the forces against us so powerful? This brings me to a critical question for you. What is your role in all of this? Do you believe that as individuals we have the power to make meaningful change? Or do you feel like the problem is too big for any of us to tackle on our own? How we answer this question will determine the future of coral reefs, and by extension, the future of our oceans and coastal communities. But there's hope. Around the world, there are people who are fighting to save coral reefs. Scientists, activists, and everyday citizens are coming together to protect these valuable ecosystems. And the results are encouraging. In some areas, coral restoration projects have seen success, with reefs beginning to recover and marine life returning. But these efforts need to be scaled up if we're going to make a lasting impact. Now, let's shift focus a bit. While coral reefs might be one of the most valuable things in the ocean, they're not the only thing. The ocean holds countless resources, many of which we don't fully understand yet. Deep sea mining, for example, is an emerging industry that seeks to extract valuable minerals from the ocean floor. But the environmental risks are enormous. What happens when we start mining the ocean's depths without fully understanding the ecosystems we're disturbing? So we've talked about coral reefs and how their value is beyond what we can immediately see. But now let's take a deeper dive, literally. What if I told you that some of the most valuable things in the ocean are still hidden, far below the surface, in the deepest parts of the sea, places that few humans have ever explored? The idea that there's untapped wealth lying beneath the waves, waiting to be discovered, might sound like a fantasy, but it's very real. Down in the deepest parts of the ocean, in areas we call the abyssal plains and the Hadal zone, there are mineral deposits worth billions, These aren't just ordinary rocks. We're talking about polymetallic nodules, which contain precious metals like gold, silver, copper, nickel, and cobalt. These metals are critical for modern technologies, everything from smartphones and electric cars to wind turbines and solar panels. Right now, the demand for these materials is skyrocketing, and companies are racing to extract them from the deep ocean. But here's the big question: at what cost? Deep-sea mining has the potential to unlock vast amounts of wealth, but the environmental risks are enormous. The ocean floor is not just a barren wasteland, it's home to complex ecosystems that we are only beginning to understand. Down there, species live in total darkness, and some of these species have never been seen by human eyes. Disrupting these ecosystems could have unknown, possibly irreversible, consequences. So why is this thing in the ocean, these minerals, worth billions? It's because we're entering a new phase of human development. Our demand for clean energy and advanced technology is pushing us to look for resources in places we never thought we'd have to explore. The deep sea, with its mineral-rich deposits, seems like the next frontier. But the irony is clear: in our race to transition to greener, cleaner energy sources, we might end up destroying one of the last untouched ecosystems on Earth. Imagine this for a moment: we're drilling into the ocean floor, pulling up valuable metals, all in the name of progress. But as we do, we're disturbing habitats that have existed for millions of years. The sediments we stir up could cloud the water, affecting everything from fish to microscopic organisms. The noise and vibrations from the machinery could disrupt marine life's communication and navigation systems. And what happens when we encounter a species we've never seen before? Do we protect it, or do we destroy it in the pursuit of profit? Now, think about the trade-offs here. On one hand, we need these resources to power our modern world. On the other hand, we risk causing untold damage to an ecosystem we know so little about. It's a dilemma that forces us to ask an uncomfortable question: how much are we willing to sacrifice for economic gain? And is there a point where the cost becomes too high? But let's zoom out for a second. These minerals are worth billions because of their rarity and utility. Just like the coral reefs, they hold immense value, but in a different way. While coral reefs provide life-sustaining services, the deep-sea minerals offer the promise of technological advancement and economic growth. Both are crucial, but they represent two sides of the same coin: natural wealth versus human exploitation. Here's something to think about in our quest to find the most valuable things in the ocean. Are we forgetting that the ocean itself is invaluable? We're so focused on what we can take from it, but what about what it gives us, without us even realizing it? The ocean regulates our climate, provides food for billions of people, and produces over half of the oxygen we breathe. And yet, we treat it like an endless resource, something we can keep extracting from without consequence. This brings me to another major point about why the ocean is worth billions: the pharmaceutical potential it holds. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, in the coral reefs and hydrothermal vents, scientists have discovered organisms with incredible medicinal properties. Some of these organisms produce compounds that have led to breakthroughs in cancer treatments, painkillers, and even antibiotics. The ocean's biodiversity is like a vast, underwater pharmacy with the potential to cure diseases that we've struggled with for centuries.